All right. Rich, good evening, man. We're live on Facebook.
Good evening, David. Uh,
Yeah,
Boy, what a month it's been, what a few weeks it's been, and certainly what a week it is so far.
right.
Yeah,
First half of the year gone, man. That's it.
Summer solstice was just on the 21st, and I feel like I haven't even caught up from the winter one. So it's
Right.
like,
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. It was good to see you, bro. I'm sorry I missed you guys last month. And
well,
we got
now it's Greg's turn to be missing in action for a minute. So
it is. Greg had some other business he had to take care of tonight. So we're missing Greg tonight. But we have some important things to discuss
yeah,
as you.
I don't even. It's really troubling, and you know what? The first thing I think we should probably do is just sort of reiterate to a bunch of the people what our mission is.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you and Greg started this a number of years ago during the first flare up of the most latest iteration of the Artsakh Azerbaijan conflict. And ever since then, it's been a growing project, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And the whole, as I understand it, what we've been trying to do is collate news from a bunch of different sources so that the diaspora can be more engaged, they can be more informed, and also to really have relevant guests. Now, obviously, this week we don't have a guest, and the reason is because there's some big stuff going on right now that we really want to focus on. So just to set the table, if you don't mind, I just wanted for some of those people that really don't understand exactly what's going on. I'm sure there's a lot of our viewers who do understand what's going on. Post the genocide that happened between 1915 and 1928, when the Armenians were dispersed throughout the world, when Russia actually, or the Soviet Union at that point, took over the rest of Armenia and put it under the blanket. Stalin deliberately put Armenia in one place and Artsakh in control by the Azeris, or Azerbaijan, a newly created country.
Right.
So what we're dealing with right now is largely as a result of that decision right there. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is going to set the table for everything that we talk about tonight. Okay, so coming close to the breakup of the Soviet Union, there were pogroms against the Armenians, and you can look that stuff up. We can put up some links for you. When the Soviet Union collapsed at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, the Armenians actually waged a war against Azerbaijan and won their independence. The problem was that there were no international acknowledgments of this independent nation because, our Armenia and Azerbaijan have been at odds with one another. And since Azerbaijan is a close friend of Turkey and Turkey is a NATO ally, they didn't want to rock the boat. Would you agree with all that?
Absolutely, yeah, and of course, Artsakh was on paper was Azerbaijan, thanks to Stalin, right? So this war, while the people of Artsakh had been clamoring to unify with Armenia for years, that led up to the war that happened in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. That was not able to happen. So the war happened, like you said. We actually won that war. One of the only wars we've ever won, right? Aside from,
Right.
And we held it for 30 years. We recaptured the full Artsakh, all of the 7 regions of it, and then
Yeah, and then in the fall of 2020, there was unprovoked war that began, and some would say we lost the war. Many would say that they don't understand how we lost the war since our boys were fighting so valiantly. And
absolutely,
I've maintained this to a lot of different people: is that it's really hard when you look at Ukraine right now and you see that there are thousands, literally a couple thousand missiles have been fired into Ukraine, and they're still holding strong. You never underestimate the power of people fighting for their own homes.
exactly.
And when I think about the young men and women who were there in Artsakh fighting against Azerbaijan, Turkey, Turkish, the hired guns literally from ISIS, Israel, Pakistan, and many others. The odds were overwhelming, but many people were like, I don't understand how you guys lost. You were winning. And so
Yeah.
I don't want to implicate anybody, but just to say that usually, again, where there's smoke, there's probably fire. And so it's a question as to how we lost and why we lost, but we did. So let's just leave it at that. And I will call that the giveaway, because I think there's something to be said when you think about the Prime Minister Pashinyan, his rhetoric prior to being elected, wanting to give away Artsakh. Well,
yeah, right. Artsakh was a problem for him. There's books written about it, right? So it's just kind of what is it, coincidental? It seems like eerily coincidental that that's essentially what may be in progress. So look, you're absolutely right. We owe what we preserve, what preserved of Artsakh, what survived of Artsakh. We lost 80% of the regions, but what did preserve, we owe that to the heroism and the valiancy of those soldiers, and the 4,000 soldiers that lost their lives, and the more than 100 plus that are still prisoners of war. That is not being talked about enough.
Right.
But we'll get to that as we go. So, yeah, Rich, I mean, I think that's good context for everybody, hopefully. And then, we're not going to stop talking about this. It's going to be an ongoing thing we're always going to talk about. But we are now facing the more realities of this position we're in now, right? Zero leverage, incompetence in the administration that's leading, and just complete lack of leverage in any way for any kind of negotiation to move forward out of the war, and reconstruct and redelineate our borders. And now Artsakh itself and its lifeline to Armenia is at risk, and we're going to talk about that. So.
Yeah. I'm going to pull up the map right now, just so that everybody has an idea of the context.
Sure.
And so, you know what? Let's just do one of these really quickly. Let me share the screen here.
Yeah, our favorite map, right?
Or least favorite, however you want to look at it.
I always have to preface it that way. I know it's triggering.
All right. So
Greg.
If we look, we've got Armenia here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Azerbaijan here, and we have what used to be all of Artsakh.
Right.
It's really a good buffer zone between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Absolutely.
And I really, just to be on the record, I really dislike saying Azerbaijan, because it seems like it's such a brand new fabricated country.
Coca-Cola is older than Azerbaijan.
Right.
Everybody needs to know that. So,
I have bicycle seats by a company that is older than them.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so what happened is they've taken these areas in the dark, in this purple or blue or whatever shows up in your on your screen, and the main, and I'll blow this up a little bit further here, or I should enlarge it a little bit more.
There you go. So there you go. See that? Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the Lachin corridor where Berdzor is. This is the area that is now going to be absorbed by Azerbaijan.
Right.
And I'm going to put this over here. See where they call this Nakhchivan as Azeri territory? This was also an Armenian province as well, because if I blow this up, you'd see that everything over here to the west, what everyone else calls Eastern Turkey, I and many others call occupied Western Armenia.
Exactly.
But this is another Armenian province that has been taken. So what they're trying to do is basically connect these two that are Armenian anyway.
Right.
So this is the city or the village that is not only under threat, but they're going to.
Right. So I think that's a good segue. Rich, what do you think? Should we start with the news that's been coming out from Pashinyan, or should we give context from the agreement from November 9?
Well, I think let's start with the agreement, because that will set the tone for the other stuff, right? So let's take a look at the.
So actually, you know what? If it's okay, let's start with the news, because I think it'll make more sense And I'm sorry to go back and forth like that. Let's start with the news that's happening, because what Pashinyan's saying, what Arach, the president of Artsakh, is saying, delineates from this agreement, which is very vague as it is, and we can get into more detail and dissect it a little bit after we talk about this road.
So in order to do that, I need to give a shout out to a handful of different organizations.
Go for it.
We at Arach Media have been really diligent about trying to collate all this news and put it all together for everybody. But where it's coming from is a bunch of talented people who are really working hard as well. One of them is the Armenian Report. One of them is Artsakh Media. One of them is 301 AD. We also have Asbarez, David, some other ones.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main ones we're pulling a lot of our stuff from, and I lean very heavily on Asbarez. But like to your point, Rich, earlier when we were prepping, like we try to have a diverse view, and we try to pull from different sources. A lot of times they are definitely reporting the same things. There might just be a little bit different different images, different quotes and things like that taken from it, different perspectives. So
and to your point, David, about diversity, I mean, obviously, not everyone is going to agree on everything, and sadly we are far removed from the days of people like Walter Cronkite, who had a very non-biased view and just gave the news as it was. Because we are in a more fiercely ad-driven environment where the news has to make money in a different way than it used to, obviously you're going to get different slants. That said, we try and get as many diverse opinions or diverse options as possible. Yeah. So which one would you like to start with? You want to
let's pull up that Osprey's article on more concessions.
Got it.
This just came out a couple of days ago, but a lot of you watching may have been seeing some of this stuff. Rich, I know you and I and Greg are seeing all kinds of things popping up on social media. There's a lot of confusion in the Armenian nation. I would imagine both in Armenia and in Artsakh and in the diaspora about what's happening, what's going to be the fate of Berdzor and Lachin, and what will be, because of that is the lifeline. That corridor, you just showed the map, that corridor is Artsakh's lifeline to Armenia. If that is gone, it is essentially choking Artsakh. It will be the end of the connection to Armenia. That cannot be the case, and we'll dissect it in a little bit here. But a lot of this confusion and a lot of question marks are stemming from our favorite prime minister, Nikol Pashinyan, who held a virtual press conference on Monday. So that was this Monday, June 27. Okay. And now keep in mind, he has been holding virtual press conferences ongoing almost since the war ended in 2020. And he's getting criticism for that. I think that is absolutely justified. He's hiding behind this virtual press conference to dodge questions, to dodge tough questions, to dodge pushback. It seems, at least that's the criticism of it. It definitely, that's the opposition saying. Absolutely, right.
And let's talk about the opposition for a second. Yes. What isn't being reported very widely are the thousands and thousands of people who are on the street right now. We have pictures, even from a recent guest, who are showing us pictures daily of people out there marching in protest.
Thousands.
With violent opposition, I have to say, coming from I've been in the diaspora my whole life.
Yep.
And the quote about when two Armenians meet, see if they won't build a new Armenia. And it breaks my heart to see this happening, to see Armenians cracking down on Armenians.
Yeah. There's been police brutality, right? We've been talking about that, and it has been reported, but it definitely been reported only in Armenian press, right? Only in Armenian press. No one else is talking about it, and that's very convenient, right? Because because of this westernization of Armenia to normalize relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan, supposedly, right? But especially that process that's underway with Turkey right now. The US is very much applauding that. Europe is very much applauding the normalization with Turkey, right? But because of that, they're conveniently not talking about the resistance that has formed, right? It's very much a resistance.
Well,
So,
for sure.
I think we'll be able to, in future episodes, we can revisit where that opposition resistance is at, because it seems to be changing a little bit. There were camps set up in Freedom Square. Apparently there's no longer camps that are set up. And then the opposition is being threatened for their jobs in the parliament because they have been abstaining, right? Our guest we had a few months back, Osprom, she's amazing, her energy and what she's doing, but their jobs are may be at risk because they have been abstaining. So we'll get into that. That's going to be stuff we'll have to get into.
I want to speak just a little bit on the Western backing of this, or their position on it. Of course, they want normalization of ties because they want Azeri oil. They want to go to Formula One races, and they want to be playing nice with Turkey, and they don't want an irritant like this small group of Armenians to get in their way. But let me just ask the general public: do you think that Israel would be okay with normalizing ties with Germany had they not, if they hadn't acknowledged the Holocaust? Yeah. Absolutely not. But that's exactly what's going on. What essentially the world community is saying is, well, some of us are going to acknowledge that there was a genocide, but even if we do, big deal, so what? You guys just better play nice because the oil and the strategy is way more important than anything else. And so, F you guys, sort it all out. And matter of fact, if you read the State Department report, what you'll see is this, how do I put it? The U.S. State Department. Now, first of all, I have to say, I've spent more than a decade working on behalf of this cause. Like in the Capitol, on the ground, mobilizing people and doing shows like this with you, David, and with Greg. And what we've been working towards is not just normalization of some sort of like we want things to ratchet down, but we can't do that without an acknowledgement and without some sort of atonement. Like, exactly. I can't imagine anybody that doesn't want some sort of peace, but you have to do it from a place of truth before you can reconcile. And what's happening is they're telling us, it doesn't matter about the truth. You just have to reconcile and move forward. And that is an absolutely unacceptable reality. It's just an absolutely unacceptable reality.
Yeah, and that's the backdrop, right? And look, and we've lost this war. And look, again, we have to do a deep dive on how that happened as well, right? But, that's for another time. We lost this war. And we have a leader that's still in place after losing the war.
Right.
And so we have zero leverage at all, right? So that's going to be a recurring theme of this episode. Coming back to this news, right? Pashinyan has this virtual press conference. In that virtual press conference, he starts talking about how, it says here, I'm just going to take it from the article. Pashinyan said that after the road bypassing Berdzor became operational. Okay, so now a road is being constructed. Armenia is building a road, an alternate route, which keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that because it's going to circle back to that November 9 agreement. An alternate route is being constructed. Armenia is building one. But guess what? Azerbaijan is also building one. And guess what? Azerbaijan has fast-tracked their route, right? So they're building their route faster. We are just starting to build this route. And while that's happening, Pashinyan's having this press conference. He says the settlements that fall outside of the Soviet-era Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region, of course, he doesn't say Artsakh, will fall under Azerbaijani control. Essentially, Pashinyan confirmed that several villages in Berdzor, we showed the map, among them Aghavno and Sus, will fall under Azerbaijani control. So he is saying this outwardly, right? Now, after asking about the fate of the residents of those villages, Pashinyan clarified by saying the Armenian government will provide housing to potentially displace Armenians of Berdzor, adding that Artsakh authorities were handling the issue of the Argovno village. Okay, then he goes on to say, I think the problems of the residents of Argovno village will be solved with the help of the Artsakh government. He's putting this on Artsakh now. Okay, I cannot say about Sus because I do not have that information at the moment, Pashinyan says. Dodging, right? Then he adds that the matter will be settled based on the principle of whether the villages fall within or outside of the former Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region.
I mean, I'm not a president, but if I were, I should have all the information readily available. That's my only job.
Right.
That's my only job is to know everything about what's going on. And if you don't, you don't get the keys.
Yeah.
Why should you? You can't play ruler and stupid at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so look,
what do I know?
Right, exactly. So, and the other thing is, man, how clear is this to you? How clear is this situation right now? As I just said it out loud, I feel like I have more questions.
Well, that's the point, David.
Right.
You should know. We've spent enough time analyzing government to know that it's all circular conversations. I'm going to give you one piece of information so that you'll have 4 more questions, and then it'll delay the resolution of anything for God knows how long.
Exactly. And so now, of course, residents of the region are angry, and they're saying mainly due to Pashinyan's nonchalance and indifference toward these territories and their residents. He's speaking very nonchalant about it, right? So there's about 200 Armenians apparently that live.
The area to him is a big pain in the ass.
What's that?
Because the entire area to him is a big pain in the ass.
Yeah, according to his prior writings, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, if someone tells you who they are, you should probably believe them. He told us that he doesn't want the area, so we have to believe him. We should believe him.
Right. So now look, there's that plus the reality that we're facing, right? Where you have a NATO ally dictating what's going on. You have Azerbaijan that has all the power because they beat us, right? And then you have incompetence in the government. And then you have Russia that is completely sidetracked, right? And probably doesn't even really care so much at this. They have their peacekeepers there.
Which they're dropping the ball in a major way because they should have a presence in the Caucasus. But
now look.
That brings me back to the State Department thing really quickly, and I'll let you continue to.
And I'm going to talk about them too in a second. Yes, go ahead.
Trying to make about the State Department is that many of us in the diaspora have been working really hard. We've been pressuring people. Please call your senators, call your assemblymen, call your congressmen. Just get engaged and have them put pressure on. But the reality is the U.S. State Department does not care about Armenia. And the reason it doesn't care about Armenia is because it is not completely aligned with Western values. And the reason that the Armenians are not completely aligned with Western values is because the only people that have helped us out have been Iran and Russia. And let me just check what the relationship is between the West and and Iran.
Right. No, Rich, and that's a great point to make. And we make it often, but it needs to be made often. And then guess what? On top of all this now, right? Armenia normalizing with Turkey. Guess what else that is a play for? Who else, Rich? Who can we tell everybody that is a play against? Russia.
Of course.
Russia, right? And again, and why
is out to dry because
right. So of course they're going to be very happy when Armenia normalizes with Turkey, the border opens, everything is quote unquote, the border opens with Azerbaijan as well. There's this transit route that's going to be built across Armenian territory and all of that. The West, the US, all NATO allies will be very happy because now it further strengthens Turkey and Azerbaijan's position in that region as an opposition to Russia. And of course, that is a hot topic right now more than ever because of Ukraine. And again, look, no one wishes any of the horrible things that are happening to the Ukrainian people, to the Ukrainian country. No one wishes that on anybody, right? Unfortunately, Armenia is in the crosshairs of all this NATO jockeying anti-Russia, right? So, and we're gonna keep talking about that. But look, let's
Not either, but you know what? Ukraine did their part to screw us over. So it's not like
they did. We don't wish this on anybody, but yes, they were a bad actor. They were a bad actor in the 2020 war in Artsakh, and they are definitely not an ally or an aid to Armenia. So
I want to kind of go off script just for a second because I have to show something because I think this is really important.
Okay.
And we're talking about the coalescing of Turkish and Azeri forces and what they're trying to achieve. So I want to show you something really quickly, and I want everybody who's watching this to really pay attention to what's going on. Because at some point, history is going to come back and say, how come we didn't see this coming? But the reality is that we did. If you look at Turkey here, and you look at Eastern Turkey, which I believe is still occupied Western Armenia.
Absolutely.
And you look at Azerbaijan, and you look at Georgia as a sort of a buffer zone state that's really sort of, hamstrung by Turkey and by Russia. It's really a Russian. I mean, they're really not really sovereign at this point, right?
Right.
If you look at Armenia is in the way of projecting the Turkish caliphate that they want to rebuild. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. They want to go all the way in here because look at where it is. It butts up into Russia and into China. And they want to flip this whole section in Kashmir and basically project into Southern Asia.
Pakistan, and don't forget Greece and Cyprus. Don't forget all that, right?
Right. But the immediate plan is to get a real caliphate together. Now they failed when they were trying to support ISIS, and there was a bleeding of fighters from Turkey directly into Syria. So what you had is, quote, ISIS fighters who were like, where do you get a fleet of brand new Toyotas? Where do you get all that stuff? You get that with oil money. Well, where did the oil money come from? It came from stolen Syrian and Iraqi oil that was sold to where? Oh, let's check, Turkey, right? And so they funded ISIS fighters, right? And so what they were trying to do is set up a caliphate here and then rebrand it. But now they're like, well, you know what? We're just going to go this way. We're going to take Armenia and it's going to start with Artsakh. And so for those of you who think that this is just some little skirmishes, you are wrong. There's a lot more going on. There's a much bigger chess game going on than most people understand. So it's really important to look at this whole area for what it could potentially be, which is, and here's another reason. You think, well, why is there, how much business can they possibly do? Well, let me tell you, China is rebuilding the Silk Road, and they're doing it in land and over sea, mostly in sea, and they're doing it with ports. And so what happens if you've got roads that go all the way from China into Russia directly into Europe?
Yep. And Rich, don't forget, Russia is definitely trying to resurrect the Soviet Union as well, right? We're seeing that as well. So yes, this is all the context that was happening right now, right? So just to bring it back, if it's okay, Rich, just to bring it back to the situation right now that's caused this confusion. So the current situation centers on roads that bypass Berdzor or Lachin, okay? And I'm taking this from the other Osprey's article, Rich, for the first one that was listed there, the second one, sorry. And now this is where it's calling out November 9, and we're going to get to that next. According to the November 9 agreement, Artsakh will have a lifeline to Armenia through Berdzor, right? However, the stipulation is that new roads must be constructed that bypass the current Lachin corridor, as a portion of that territory is not occupied by Azerbaijan. Okay, so this is where it's still confusing, right? This is where it's like, okay, I remember, Rich, I remember you, me, and Greg were on live together when we were going through this agreement, and we're like, okay, this is really effed up, but at least that was put in there where peacekeepers will guard the road, the corridor, the Lachin corridor, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, even, and I don't have any, sadly, I don't have any articles to validate what I'm saying or to underscore what I'm saying. But as I understand it, maybe someone can help me, maybe Otto or one of our other friends who are out there. Maybe you guys can help me out here. But as I understand it, Iran was one of the first people to say, hey, you know what? You don't have to go do all that. We'll work with you to make a new little road here. And they were like, no, we got this one. And you know why? Because they don't want to mess with Iran. What they want to do is cut through the heart of us.
right. Yeah, no, it's true, man. So look, the last point I'm going to make here about the road, because this is what Pashinyan's saying about it, why it's still in the planning phase. Excuse me, man, it's still in the planning stages, okay? And then we can look at the agreement, is this. Azerbaijan, as I mentioned, is fast-tracking their construction. It's almost a 20-mile road, okay? Saying that the project is near completion, while Armenia is still in the planning stages. And according to Pashinyan, he said on Monday, again, this is all on Monday, that Yerevan is awaiting assurances that Russian peacekeepers will monitor the area. That could be, but you still have Azerbaijan fast-tracking their road while we're not. And his quote is this: road construction must also be carried out in Armenia to reach such a solution. At this stage, we have already started work on the design. When there is a final understanding that we are achieving our goal, that is, we must have a faster and better way under the full control of Russian peacekeepers, yes, we will work toward such a solution. That is what he said. So, again, still confusing. Yes, it needs to be protected by Russian peacekeepers, but you have Azerbaijan fast-tracking theirs, and we are only in planning. That does not sound good. Rich, should we go to the agreement to show everybody where this is coming up? Because it was very conveniently unclear when this agreement came out that this is what we would be seeing now.
Hang on a second.
No problem.
What I want to show you, and before we do that, I think it's important that I show you some pictures that were taken recently to validate exactly what you're saying. These are pictures of the road itself. Azerbaijan has announced it will cut the artery between Armenia and Artsakh. These are the photos, and I can test from my own two eyes. If it's yours, take it. If you love it, love Armenia, make it.
Yep.
So this is what's happening right now.
That was last month's guest. Yeah, Allison to music.
So while I am not always a big fan of social media and its platforms, I can say that this is I mean,
she's on the ground. She's on the ground seeing it. There it is. So yeah, that looks pretty complete to me, or near completion to me. We don't know how many miles of that is. There you go. There they are building it. Wow.
Yeah.
So, look, like what part of the confusion is, how many months ago was November? It's almost been 2 years, almost 2 years ago, right? And the generality of this agreement leaves all this room for quote unquote negotiating, or quote unquote, not even quote unquote, or forcibly enacting the forcibly rolling out the actual agreement, right? No negotiation, right? So I think what we're seeing here is incompetence in the administration and complete lack of leverage at all, because we lost, and because they're incompetent, and because it's the same leader that was there when we lost, right? And because Russia has kind of like said, okay, we'll come in when we need to, right? So
you know what? And realistically, let's be honest, what can they do if the leader of Armenia is allowing these things to happen? If the leader of Artsakh is allowing these things to happen?
Right. Now look.
Basically rubber stamping it and making an agreement that makes it all binding. And so
Yeah.
the international community is like, well, you guys made it. You guys made the agreement. It's like, well, okay, but yeah, they had a gun to our head, and the guy who had who had a gun to his head might have been in on the deal in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be, Rich. I mean, we know there's reports that there were traitors in the war. We need more information to come out on that, but there were reports on that. The actual members of Artsakh's government have actually said that. The former ombudsman, the current I guess he's acting like kind of prime minister, or kind of like head of state, not head of state, like what's the word I'm looking for, man? Like the head of the State Department, like a Secretary of State, if you will, David Balabanyan. Like they have admitted that there were traitors in the war, right?
Yeah, but there's a different. So that is a very vague statement, and I know that we don't have a whole lot to substantiate that.
Right.
Traitors in the war, does that mean people on the ground or people in the suits?
Exactly, right.
Exactly. I would venture to say it's the people in the suits.
It could be, Rich. I mean, the other thing
I don't know.
It very well could be, man. Look, the other thing we could be seeing is literally incompetence on top of the no leverage, on top of they really have no choice. This is what's being dictated by the powers that be. Though that we have lost the war, we have zero leverage.
Right.
Like now, look, I'm not saying that to try to let Pashinyan off the hook.
I get it.
Or Arach off the hook, because they very much are speaking as total capitulators, right now. And that's what's also angering the Armenian nation. Let's look at the agreement. If you could pull it up, great. If not, I'm going to read it. This is 0.6 out of the 9. Okay. Because it directly relates to what's happening now. And it's really sad to see what's happening now, because when we read this agreement, we did not know this is what it would be, because that agreement was very vague, right? And we have zero leverage, zero pushback at all about what's happening, and zero negotiating ability at all. And so it's forcibly being literally steamrolled over us, right? So there you go. So if we go to number 6, you can see the Republic of Armenia shall return the Kelbajar region of the Republic of to the Republic of Azerbaijan by November 15, and the Lachin region by December 1. Okay, here. The Lachin corridor will provide the communication between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, and at the same time will not affect the city of Shushi. That's where we lost Shushi, right? Shall remain under the control of the peacekeeping troops of the Russian Federation. We're like, okay, or at least thank God the peacekeepers are supposed to be guarding Lachin, right? Now here's where we get into what's happening right now. At least from my perception, right? The parties have agreed that a plan for the construction of a new route along the Lachin corridor shall be determined within the next 3 years. Okay, here we are, year number 2. I remember when we were reading this, Rich. Remember when we were going through this? We're like, WTF? What the hell? Who's coming up with this timeline? What is this timeline? What are they talking about? What's this new route, right? And it goes on, providing communication between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, with the subsequent redeployment of Russian peacekeeping troops to protect this route. The next one we know is not happening. Right, Azerbaijan shall guarantee traffic safety for citizens, vehicles, and goods in both directions along the Lachin corridor. Yeah, right. They've been attacking people.
Let's have the wolves guard the sheep.
Right. So this is what's happening now. But hey, Rich, where does it say Azerbaijan will build their road first? Right? Where does it say that? Right now, look, we know that they were going to be building roads, the communications, this and that. So that's what we're seeing, man. So that's what's happening. And it's being forcibly applied on us with leadership that is incompetent, that cannot communicate it, and causing even more confusion.
We know that there were incursions into the territory that went unanswered. We know that there were incursions that went into the territory that people stopped reporting on, and deliberately quit reporting on, and we still don't know whatever happened. Like they were surrounding the lake and then all of a sudden gone, poof.
They still reside in parts of Armenian territory. The Azeri soldiers still reside, and they've posted up tents. They post up all kinds of stuff, man.
I want to get out in front of something really quickly because I want to say it so we don't have to talk about it. Right now, there were some news articles about 50 Cent coming to Armenia. And I'm just going to say right now that that is basically bread and circuses. If you know anything about what that statement means, bread and circuses is what the Romans would use to pacify its citizens when there was a lot going on that they didn't want them to pay attention to. We're going to throw games and we're going to give you bread to go along with it, bread and circuses. And so what ended up happening is people were so wowed by the fact that they get to see this entertainment and they get bread and they get to eat a little bit that they didn't care that there was money being taken out of it. They didn't care that their lands were getting squandered. They didn't care that the republic was falling apart. And that's exactly what's happening right now. 50 Cent comes to Armenia and all of a sudden everybody goes crazy. Oh, geez, we signed a new Green Deal where we're going to put out new technologies. Oh, that's all great. What difference does it make if we're going to be a Turkish suburb? What difference does it make? So this is all smoke and mirrors and some sort of
distraction. It's distraction. I mean, I mean, there's definitely a dichotomy, right, between Yerevan and then the border regions, and then Artsakh. Absolute dichotomy in terms of what's happening, and it is upsetting, because this is the actual livelihood of these people, the hundreds of civilian Armenian people in those villages in Berdzor and Lachin that are now at risk. And their status is in complete flux and at question. It seems like they're going to have to be relocated, but then the village leaders there are like, we cannot leave. And he's right. If they leave, there's no way it remains Armenian. If they leave, there is no way, at least who knows how long.
They say they also know that they're in hostile territory now.
Exactly. So yes, look, we keep following this. That really is the extent of what I'm aware of and what we're aware of, Rich. I believe like that's really what the reporting is. Pashinyan has come out and caused all this confusion about what the status is there by nonchalantly saying it on virtual press conferences. By the way, a lot of media boycotted his press conference because it's virtual. That's another news.
For sure. I want to give a quick shout out to everybody who've been posting on the feed. Normally I do a fair job in at least watching them and paying attention, but without Greg here, it's David and I, and so forgive me if I haven't been as attentive to your comments as possible. Really quickly, I want to give a shout out to Ara and Nora, and let's look at some others. You guys have been super active, and I'm really
thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, for commenting. Yes. We're in a very difficult time for the nation and for Artsakh, and we have to really monitor this closely. Everyone needs to be aware. Everyone needs to talk about this. Like you said, Rich, people are sharing about 50 Cent more than sharing about Berdzor and Lachin at risk. And it's upsetting, man. You're right. So
and for whatever it's worth, David, I can understand, because many of us are living with not just PTSD, but extended years of trauma that's built up, and these things are very triggering for many of us who are deeply emotional people, to have to bury this stuff just to live a life, let alone to interact with your community. It's a real challenge, and so it's no wonder that we'd want to share. Hey, look, we got this new thing happening. I get that. But
Rich, I didn't even put it in the positive news. I put a sports item there. If we have time to get to it, we could probably end it. But it's pretty cool. But we'll get to that. But look, that's the situation. We're gonna keep watching it. And the last thing I'll say is, President of Artsakh, Arach, is essentially just going along with it as well. And now look, that is the agreement that they signed. But the way that they are communicating it is just causing this real sense of confusion and concern and anger amongst the nation, because it just seems like it's so casually being discussed and presented by all the leadership.
For sure. And I think that there's this and I hate to say this the wrong way. When I say ignorance, I don't mean that they're not paying attention and they're not acknowledging it.
Right.
I mean that they're literally trying to ignore other parts of the news, and they want to redirect. And so with that in mind, I just want to remind us that, I know I just talked about, I wish there was some more positive stuff. We need to capitalize on that kind of stuff. But these are the people that we're dealing with. We're trying to normalize the relationships with people who are constantly killing our soldiers.
Right. There was another soldier.
Are you joking? Why would we think that a flood of bullshit Turkish, sorry, but the Turkish quote goods is going to help when these people are murdering us? Right. What? Who?
Right. Right. This happened on June 22nd. 19-year-old soldier that was killed by Azeri forces. This is an Armenian soldier, Arach Media. He was killed on Saturday in Vardanis, which is Armenia. This is Armenia. This is not Artsakh. You could argue Artsakh is safer. We don't know about Lachin and Berdzor, but you could argue that Artsakh has been safer than Armenia, with the peacekeepers guarding, and even that's been at question at times, but they are there. So anyway,
if there was a, if a Mexican soldier or a Mexican DEA agent killed one of our soldiers in San Diego or Oceanside, what do you think would happen? Whoa, what's going on here? And there'd be outrage. There'd be at least some discussion about it. But this is like, man, just another guy. It's unbelievable to me.
So it looks like this happened on the 18th. If it was Saturday, and this came out on the 22nd, so it was around that time. So yeah, God rest his soul, and we're grateful for his service. And by the way, there are links on our link tree for ways to support families of fallen and injured soldiers, especially fallen soldiers as well, in Armenia and Artsakh, through the 1,000 plus .am. It's I can't forget the name of it, but that is the organization in Armenia that cares for the families of the fallen soldiers. So there is a link. Look for it on the link tree, and you can set up. I give $10 a month to it. We have 1,000 plus. It's because where that name comes from is Armenians that work in Armenia. It's like a tax that comes off their paycheck. 1,000 dirham goes to this fund. With the losses of 4,000 soldiers in Artsakh and the continuing attacks on Armenian and the soldiers, the strain is too much on just the Armenian people. They need the diaspora's help as well. You can do it monthly. You can do one-time donations. 1,000 plus is the site. So and it's on our link tree.
To just sort of voice for all those people that say, well, what's the diaspora doing? If you're not here, then it doesn't really matter. Let me tell you, there's a lot of different ways to help the cause.
Yeah, I give $10 a
month. Ways to help move the ball forward. And I'm not going to listen to anybody that says it just because I'm not standing on that soil that I don't care and I'm not trying to help. We're all donating time and energy and money and doing what we can to rally more than just a small local group of people. We're trying to get an international audience. And in many ways, we have that here with Arach Media. We're grateful for everybody who's watching and who will be watching this. Speaking about some of that stuff, and we've been talking about the State Department. I just want to give a quick update, David. We spoke about this prior to going live, and this is about giving military aid to Azerbaijan. I mean, I think many of us felt this sense of elation the first year when Biden acknowledged the genocide, formally. But then the gut punch happened when he approved, the provision in 907 or waived section 907. And so, we're going to put these things up. But for those of you who don't know, I just want to read this top section over here to you. Okay. This is a section of the United States Freedom Support Act, which bans any kind of direct United States aid to the Azerbaijani government. This ban made Azerbaijan the only post-Soviet state not to receive direct aid from the United States government to facilitate economic and stability. So essentially what has happened is Biden has said, yeah, you know what? We recognize that there's a genocide and that it happened, and we have a law in place that says that we're not going to give money to you as an aid package, but I'm going to waive that just because. And
now look, it's been waived. I believe, and look, absolutely, man, absolutely. It's infuriating. It's like a slap in the face, worse than a slap in the face. You want to recognize our genocide, and we're grateful for that, Mr. President. But then 6 days later, to go and waive Section 907, which was put in place in the early 90s, 1992, because of the aggression by Azerbaijan against the Armenians of Artsakh and Armenia. It was enacted then.
Yes, that's the takeaway, isn't it, David? That's the takeaway, David. If you do a crime, you better make it big. And if you do a big enough crime, and you get enough land, and you get enough strategic, resources, you can withstand enough scrutiny for a while, then you'll have power and leverage, and then everybody can go to hell.
Exactly.
So that's the takeaway.
Exactly. And now look, I don't know if you're still showing it or not, but the waiver is there. It's Section B or whatever. There's A, the restriction, U.S. assistance under this and any other act may not be provided to the government of Azerbaijan until the president determines and so reports to the Congress that the government of Azerbaijan is taking demonstrable steps to cease all blockades and other offensive uses of force against Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. Has that happened, Rich?
No, because now we're giving away Nagorno-Karabakh, or we know it as Artsakh. So now that that's going to be done, then what difference does it make? This is irrelevant.
And actually, it's the top part of it that I'm referring to. So now the waiver is the restriction on assistance shall not apply if the president determines and so certifies to Congress that the application of the restriction would not be in the national interest of the United States. That's pretty vague, right? So now here's the thing, Rich, just to give, to complete this thought, not complete it, but to go a little bit further, I did attend a conference call. It was a Zoom call. It was actually a WebEx call. I'm assuming WebEx is more secure than Zoom for the US State Department to do a WebEx call. I work for Cisco, by the way, to do a WebEx call instead of a Zoom call with the Armenian Assembly and the State Department. I went on this call, was WebEx, members of the State Department, and I give the Armenian Assembly some credit. Those that might be watching may have been critical of the Armenian Assembly for having that State Department meeting. I was skeptical as well, but I am a supporter. I support the Armenian Assembly and the ANC. I work with both of them as much as I can. Rich, I know you have as well. So it's like, I attended this call to see what they were going to say, and I give the Armenian Assembly credit because they asked straight up, how can aid be given to Azerbaijan after the acts and the war and the aggression of 2020? And the response was, and they've been saying this all along, that all aid that was given to them was not given to them for their offensive military actions. It was supposedly for border protection or this or that. But Rich.
Mr. and Mrs. Constituent, the money that went into the general fund was allocated for one thing. We don't know if it was used for another thing.
No, that's the right point, Rich, because apparently.
It's so dumb.
No, listen, Rich.
Bullshit. I'm sorry, man.
Rich, you're right. To your point, bro. Rich, apparently there were issues with the auditing of how it was used. But Rich, you pointed this out, man. You pointed this out. I'm going to give you mad props and credit for this, and I'm getting animated too right now. Hopefully we still have some people watching. We have 6 people watching. Thanks for sticking with us. Listen, Rich, you spelled it out, bro. You give 120 million. That's a hell of a lot of money, okay? 120 million you give to Azerbaijan. Let's say it really went to where it was supposed to go, right? Just border security, this and that, anti-narcotics, whatever it is, right? Anti-terrorism, quote unquote, is what the State Department says. Let's say it goes for that, right?
Contain Iran.
What is that?
Whatever.
Free up. What does it free up for, Rich? What is that 120 million free up elsewhere?
Look, man, I have my own. Right? I have my own weird stuff that I do with my money and justify, well, if I sell this thing, then I can buy that thing. It doesn't matter, man. Money's going to the place. It's like if the State Department gives them $120 million to go contain Iran, yeah, they're going to use $120 million to go get this stuff. And it just so happens that was about the same amount of weapons that they bought from Turkey and from Israel. So you know what are we talking about? Like the U.S. funded the same thing that the rest of us are like, hey, please stop it. And you know what? The State Department doesn't care because we haven't completely fallen in line with America. But America and the West have not given a shit about Armenia. They haven't done enough.
Because
sorry, I'm dropping bombs and
it's all right. Yeah, I was holding back. I was holding back a couple myself. So look. We see the MO, we see what's happening. We probably can expect more of it. Sadly, we can lobby the crap out of it. We need to keep lobbying. We need to keep, I give credit and I give thanks to Senator Menendez and other senators and members of the House that have pushed back on the president for waiving this. But, you know, it looks like this is what's going to be happening. Recognize the genocide. Short time after, continue to waive Section 907. Now, keep in mind, apparently it has been waived every year since 9/11, but like, does that make this okay? Does that justify what is happening?
And I can understand, you know, in the vague language that says if it's not in the America's best interest, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, you know, what we have to do is broaden our coalition and work with as many people as possible to try and contain terrorism. But what they've just done is funded terrorism.
Exactly. And enabled it further. Exactly. Very sad. It's very sad. And, you know, look, my guess is that there's more involved than just President Biden making the call. But that would have to be a question for him and actually get an idea of what's going on in his head. Is he consciously, is he consciously
anything? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, is he completely okay with this, or is the Department of Defense running this? Is it all the above? Who knows, man? But look, that's the reality, and we have to keep fighting, man, and we have to keep.
Bernie would have been better on this, but what do I know?
What's that?
Bernie would have been better on this. He would at least had, you know, like I understand, like.
Maybe.
I understand that politics is not an easy game. I understand that politics is about the art of holding your cards, and it's.
And look, man, everything now is even more anti-Russia, right? Even more so now, everything. So who knows how much of that went into it? Look, they're going to use, like you said, for national interest, they're going to use everything that they want and disguise it as national interest. So look, no, not even disguise it. They're going to claim it's national interest. So, and I want to make one clarification. The entity that the money is going towards for the soldiers and their families, it's called the Insurance Foundation for Servicemen in Armenia. The website is 1000plus.am. So that is what's happening. So
we're just about at our hour. So what I want to do is let's launch into the last little bits of good news, and then, the only bits of good news that we've got right now. So
yeah, I mean, look, there's been some positive things that are happening, especially in sport and entertainment. You know, there's some members. You know, Eric Israelian was named to the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum Board, and there's a couple other. The producer Sevo Hanyan and his wife were just received some acknowledgement as well. But yes, the Armenian national team of basketball, Armenia's basketball team, national team, has been winning. They've been winning in the Sada Cup, which is a a cup for smaller countries in that region. It's a FIBA, the Federal International Basketball Association. So they won their first game in SADA, and then they beat Iran in the SADA Cup as well.
Pretty good.
And then they went on and they beat Gibraltar in the tournament that they're currently in, although it may have just ended, which is a FIBA championship for small countries. So it's really, really awesome. And now here's the cool thing about it. You can see there are a few non-Armenians in there, but hey, other countries also have non-ethnic players from their country that are playing on their national team. And if you go back there, Rich, if you show it one more time, so I want to give this man a shout out because he is the man behind this right now. I'm going to give him a lot of credit, and I hope to have him as a guest on this show, Mr. Rich Kalamian on the far left. He's an assistant coach on the Detroit Pistons. You remember, we announced on this show, he was just named a few months ago head coach of the Armenia's national team. He's already gone in there. He's already making some changes, because I would not be surprised if the old way of doing things, the Armenian national team may not even be winning these games at all, even in this cup. Look, so we beat Team USA handedly. Yeah, you beat any USA players at any level, and I think that's a major accomplishment, man. So like,
I agree. You know what? I know I just went on a tirade a little while ago about bread and circuses, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm double talking here or whatever.
Right.
But sport is very important. I'm not trying to say that it's all distractions. You know what? On a side note, and this maybe will help put a little context to this. Before World War II, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Japan was a huge baseball fan. Like, the country loved baseball. In fact, we had lots of players, including Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, who would regularly go there and barnstorm and go play these big exhibitions. And this is a well-known fact, maybe not by everybody, but it is a well-known fact that one of the first things that General MacArthur did when given the authorization to go rebuild Japan, one of the first things he said is, we need to get these people playing baseball again. It's going to help spread democracy. So as far as I'm concerned, sport is a huge thing, and we already have an Armenian pitcher with the A's. Maybe we need to start getting them to play baseball. So that's just my little 2 cents.
Yeah. I don't know how much baseball is played in Armenia. Apparently golf is, which is kind of cool. And apparently basketball is growing in popularity. And actually, you know what? Maybe this will be a good launching pad for more growth of basketball and popularity of basketball in that country. But you're right, Rich. I mean, we don't mean to distract at all from the reality of what's happening out there. We do try, you've mentioned it often, Rich, when we've been here. We do try to at least end with some kind of a positive if we can, or at least highlight some positives that are happening. Sure, I actually do. I'm going to confess it, man. I feel some excitement that 50 Cent and Armin were performing in Armenia, but there is very much a dichotomy, and we all need to be aware of what the reality was happening, and the reality of the people, the dangers that are facing the people of Lachin and Berdzor and Artsakh, border regions of Armenia, and Armenia and Artsakh and the Armenian nation, and as a whole. So yeah, man.
On that note, it's probably best that we log off, and
Yep.
I'm going to finish up with a couple more links up here. So for those of you who have already watched us thus far, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. For those who are watching after the fact, we also appreciate you as well. Please remember to tell everybody about Arach Media. Please remember to continue to subscribe on our YouTube channel. David does a great job in putting this stuff up. Our schedule isn't as robust as it used to be, but we're working on that again. Obviously, we're three guys who are bootstrapping this whole thing and doing everything that we can to keep this going. We are self-funded. We do not ask for money. And there may come a time where we, call in some favors and ask for some resources to get other places. But largely, it's three men who are just doing what we can for everyone out there.
Yeah, well said, man. Well said. Thank you, everybody, for watching and sharing and all the support. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody, and have a lovely, lovely evening.
Yeah. Have a great night.
Oh, I guess. Hit
Yeah.
the wrong button.
Yeah, it's okay. Have a great night, everyone.